Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to the Reading Through the Bible in a Year series. Today we will be talking about Joshua. I think I forgot that some books in the Bible can be very short, so I actually have 3 of these to film today. So we're just gonna hop right into Joshua. So as always, we start with who it's written by, and this is the first one in the Old Testament that's not written by Moses. When I googled it, it said primarily Joshua, and it's also considered the high priests Eleazar and Phinehas were contributors to this book as well. And then for my general takeaways from this book, chapter 1, God commissions Joshua. Chapter 2 is the story of Rahab and the spies, if you know that story. Chapter 6 is the fall of Jericho. The next thing I said many chapters about conquering land, what people are allotted, and what the different tribes inherit, like the different tribes of Israel. And then finally, the book ends with Joshua's death. So yeah, those are all my takeaways for the book for Joshua. And for my didn't know / didn't realize section, I just have 2 today. For the first one, I have written down the context behind the famous verse Joshua 1:9 comes from God speaking to Joshua about how he is to not be afraid for what is to come, because God will keep his word with him just as he did with Moses. Joshua just became the next leader and needed reassurance that God will be there for him as well. I just love all these snippets throughout the Old Testament so far that have shown us that God really cares about his people and the time that he takes to reassure them, considering the fact that he is literally God. I think that is such a beautiful thing to read about. Like, these people are just humans experiencing human emotions, and how I can only imagine trying to like step into the shoes that Moses left behind, like trying to pretend like I'm Joshua in this scenario and being like, I'm about to step into this man's shoes. Like, this man who lived for years and led our people for years under the guidance of God, obviously, and now I'm supposed to fulfill this role and step into these shoes. Like, I can only imagine how terrifying that transition of leadership had to be, and the fact that God took time to personally reassure Joshua through this, I really loved that sentiment, so. And then my second one for this section, I wrote in chapter 10, God commands the sun and the moon to stay still so that they could finish their battle of vengeance against their enemies. I knew there are many miracles throughout the Bible, but I don't think I've ever heard of this one where God makes the sun and moon stay in place. I mean, probably not like one of the major miracles you hear about in the Bible for sure. So maybe that's why this one doesn't stick out to me. It's definitely more of like maybe a minor one, if you will, but we hear about God creating the world, we hear about Jesus turning water into wine. And like, I thought that this was one that I don't hear a lot about, is the fact that God quite literally made the sun stay still so that they could finish this battle that they had to do. And just the idea that God stretched like the longevity of that day's sunlight just to accomplish that, I just thought that was kind of cool to read about. And then finally, for my favorite verse, I did choose Joshua 1:9. Is it an obvious choice? Maybe. But genuinely, I think out of all the verses that I read in Joshua, it just also was the best one. And it reads, "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened and do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." Yeah, I love that verse so much. I know it's a very well-known verse in the Christian community. But, I mean, putting that aside, I think there's just still a really good sentiment to take away from that. I feel like very similar to the verse that I chose for Deuteronomy as well for my favorite verse, but I don't know, just the idea that we have God on our side. We do not have to be afraid. In fact, he's telling us to not be afraid. He's saying, be strong, be courageous, do not be frightened. Dismayed's kind of like an interesting word, so let me look up the definition for that one real quick, just because I'm curious. I have an idea of what I think it's like means, but let me just check real quick. It is a past tense verb. It means to cause someone to feel consternation and distress. Consternation. I said that word right. I can't believe that. Yeah, he's telling us to, which is what I thought it was meaning, was basically do not be frightened, do not be distressed. That is such a wonderful sentiment, y'all. Like, obviously we're humans. We're not gonna be perfect at this. I, by no means, am perfect at that. Many days of my life spend it in distress, but I just think it's such a great reminder that way before I was born, way before I was even notion, if you will, I get to read about God comforting his own creation and how he wants us to be strong and courageous in the fact that he is on our side and he is here with us. So I don't know. I even loved that verse as a child too. There was like a Sunday school song that went with it so that you could learn that verse. And every time I hear Joshua 1:9, that song immediately pops into my head. So the whole time I'm reading this book, I'm thinking about that Sunday school song. But this book went by pretty fast. It was 24 chapters, and I already finished Judges and Ruth, and I'm on 1 Samuel already. So if that tells you anything, the next 2 ones are also pretty short too. But But yeah, that is all I have for you guys today. Like I mentioned before, all of these are being added to a playlist on my channel, so please feel free to go check that out. And as always, I hope you guys are having a good day, but if you're not, that's okay too. I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye! Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Ruth, 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah, Esther, Job, Psalm, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Son of Songs, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentations, Ezekiel, Daniel, Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, and the last one, Malachi. Just had to check that the order of the books was correct on my phone. But I could also easily check on here.